Good morning and welcome back to 10 Minutes of Meaning, our learning of Sefer Tanya, Sefer HaBenonim, Likutei Amarim. I want to thank our generous sponsors for the series, Marilyn and Michael Fidak, my dear friends, so generous of them to sponsor our learning. I say our learning, this is not teaching, as I'm going to probably give this disclaimer each and every time. I'm not in a position to teach Tanya, I'm simply learning Tanya and learning it out loud together with you. Last week we left off with our overview, our introduction, the background of the Alter Rebbe, Shneur Zalman of Liadi Zatzaz, Chosei Yagan Aleinu, his history and background, the background of the authoring of Sefer Tanya, and an overview of what he's trying to accomplish. And the minute Hasidim learn, not just diving into the opening of the Sefer, Perek Aleph, or even the Hakdama, the introduction, but because the Sefer is so sacred, so significant, it's the Torah Shebechsav of Chasidus, they begin from the title page. Usually when we open a book, we open a Sefer, we flip through the title page. What is the title page? We want to know when it was published, where it was published, the author. We know that about Sefer Tanya. And yet the title page of Sefer Tanya is in itself so instructive, so informative, so important, and it contains so much information. So again, we're working off of the classic text of Tanya. And I mentioned last week, I've been gaining a lot from the commentary of Rabbi Steinsaltz and a much more recent commentary from Rabbi Chaim Miller, the Practical Tanya. Both are excellent, together with so many other works on Tanya. The title page points out that Sefer Likutei Amarim Chelik Rishon Anikra B'Shem Sefer Shel Benonim. The first thing he says is that this book is Likutei Amarim. It is a collection of sayings. Part one, a collections of saying. And we pointed out last week already that a collection of sayings is a humble, very humble way of the Alter Rebbe introducing this Sefer. That point we'll see in the Hakdama. The Alter Rebbe was inundated with visitors and guests, with Hasidim, loyal followers and disciples who wanted to download from him, essentially, all of the Torah of Hasidus, this new way, this perspective. I was thinking today's Daf Yomi, for those who learned the Daf already, refers to that Rabbi Yehuda, who wasn't learning as much, was not as knowledgeable as many of his contemporaries, was focused only on a narrow part of Torah, but he had such righteousness in him that when the rain stopped and he fasted, Hashem made the rain fall, even though his peers, who perhaps had greater Torah knowledge, when they prayed it didn't. And the Gemara says, why? Because Rahmana Liba Boy, that not only is Torah so central, so critical, so important, but if a person has tremendous knowledge of Torah but does not give their heart, Rahmana Liba Boy, Hashem ultimately wants what's in our heart. That's what Sefer Tanya is teaching. Likutei Amarim are a collection of sayings for how to stimulate our heart, shock our heart into beating, into action, into living, and dedicate and devote our heart to Hashem. So Tanya, Chabad Chochma Bina Udas, is certainly all about the intellectual pursuit of Torah, but it's the intellectual pursuit of Torah with Rahman Ali Baboy, with wanting what's in our heart. So Tanya is not just an anthology. The Alter Rebbe was humble when he said, it's Likutei Amarim, it's a collection of sayings, but it's not an anthology. There are books that are produced today where the author introduces absolutely nothing new. They simply literally collect sayings of others, and what's new is the way it's organized, or they did the hard work of going to collect it and organize it and publish it so neatly and so beautifully. But it's more than simply a collection, Likutei Amarim. It is a synthesis of these teachings. It is weaving them together in a way that paints a portrait, that lifts our spirits, that gives us an optimism and a hope and an ambition for who we can become. So Likutei Amarim, it is a collection of sayings, but much more than just a collection of sayings, it is in fact a synthesis of those sayings. And then he titles it Hanikra B'Shem Sefer Shel Benonim. It's the book of Benonim. So we mentioned last week that the Baal Tanya, the Alter Rebbe's translation or definition of Benonim is very different than others. The Rambam understands Benonim as those who on the scales it's equal 50-50. So if a person wakes up on a particular day, a person's merits and demerits, person's virtues and liabilities. So your good behavior and bad behavior, it evens out. And your very next act can tip the scale that if you have more good than bad, you're a tzaddik. More bad than good, you're a rasha. If you're exactly even, you're a benoni. That's not the Alter Rebbe's definition or understanding of benoni. The definition of benoni for the Alter Rebbe is a person who is in a state of tension. You see, the tzaddik is a person who's stagnant, who's stationary. The tzaddik is a person who's immutable. The tzaddik is the person whose instinct and intuition, who has conditioned themselves naturally or learned to always make the right choice. So the tzaddik doesn't struggle. The tzaddik has no struggle in life. Should I say this? Should I look at this? Should I act this way? Do I do this? For the tzaddik, naturally, always the right choice. The tzaddik is always in a state of permanent perfection. The benoni might have the same actions as the tzaddik. Not like the Rambam's benoni that the scales are even. The benoni for the Alter Rebbe is a person who might do all the right things. We would define them as a tzaddik. But they only came to the conclusion and the choice of doing the right things after a tension and struggle with wanting to do the wrong thing. What makes them a benoni is that it's a lifelong struggle, a struggle that might never reach a decisive resolution. A person who might, on the outside, look like the correct choices is living as a tzaddik, but only arrives at that after the struggle of making the right choices and struggling with perhaps wanting to do the wrong ones. So we mentioned last week, the benoni is the hero of Sefer Tanya. That's why it's called Sefer HaBenonim. It is written for the benonim, which is basically all of us. Proudly, we can see ourselves in that category. There are rare Lamed Vav Tzadikim in every generation. We had that in the daf recently as well. There are 36 Tzadikim. It's natural, it's intuitive, it's instinctive. There is no struggle. They simply live and make the right choices. They're an angel even while here on earth in the guise of man. But for the majority, for the overwhelming majority, for nearly all of us, we're Beinonim. Even when we make the right choices that look like we're living lives of tzidkus, but we're Beinonim in that we are engaged in a lifelong struggle. And where did he get this from? Meluka mi pisfarim pisofrim kedoshe elyon. He says this is collected and gleaned from books and sages exalted and holy who are in Gan Eden. Gan Eden miyusad al-pasuk, and it's based on a pasuk we'll see in a moment. So who are these sages? Who are these exalted ones? Who are the ones who are in Gan Eden? From whom did the Baal Tanya, the Alter Rebbe, glean and gather this Likutei Amarim, these sayings, to weave together and to give a synthesis to it, to paint this portrait, this book that's going to solve the illness inside us. As we said last week, the Baal Tanya is not looking to treat the symptoms. He's looking to get to the underlying illness. He's looking to help us train the animal in us. Where and from whom did he gather these sayings? So Rabbi Steinsaltz in his commentary says, a tradition among Hasidim is that the books, apart from the basic ones, Torah, Gemara, Zohar, Shulchan Aruch, the Ari, are the works of the Maharal, because after all, the Baal Tanya is a 7th generation descendant of the Maharal. He's a 7th generation direct descendant of the Maharal. Also, he doesn't quote directly from the Maharal's books, but their influence is strong. The influence is strong. You can feel and see some of the language and principles of the Maharal. He also is perhaps alluding to the Shla Kadosh Shnei Luchos Abris, the Bishaya Levi Horowitz, also the Reishis Chochma, and the sages that the Alter Rebbe is talking about are his 3 mentors. Who are the 3 mentors, 3 Rebbeim of the Alter Rebbe? Number 1 is the Maggid of Mizrich, who was the principal primary student of the Heilige Baal Shem. So Baal Shem, certainly, Baal Shem, all Hasidus sources from the Baal Shem, that's not even necessarily one of the 3 mentors from whom he's quoting. The Maggid of Mizrich, who was responsible for many of the teachings. That's where he went. We mentioned last week he had the choice. Was he going to go learn from the Gra? Was he going to go to Vilna or Mizrich? He said, I know how to learn a little bit. I don't know how to daven at all. He chose to go to Mizrich and change the trajectory of all of Yiddishkeit, of all of Yidden, of all of maybe humanity. The second is the Maggid's son, Rav Avram. The Maggid's son, known as the Malach, as the angel, from whom he also sat and learned. And perhaps the third, he said, is his Rebbe, Rav Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk, who was the successor of the Maggid, is the leader of the Hasidic movement, who made Aliyah. The Alter Rebbe was going to go with him, we mentioned last week, and chose not to. Here, the Rav Chaim Miller also collects who are these Rebbeim, who are these teachers. Rav Dov Ber, the Maggid and Mizrich, were published in 1781. So the Maggid also collected teachings, and in 1781 published them, and the Maggid, his Rebbe, also called it Likutei Amarim. So that was the precedent from which the Alter Rebbe based the name of his own sefer that appeared years later in 1796. So that is that is the majority of from whom he gathered and collected these Likutei Amarim. And he says, what is the point? Back to the title page. And the point of all of this is Miyusad, it's based on the pasuk Kikar ve'elach hadar mo b'ficha v'vavcha la'asoso, pasuk in Sefer Dvarim, that it, Kikar ve'elach hadavar, it, the davar, this is very close to you, is very close to you. It's b'ficha, it's in your mouth, v'vavcha, it's in your heart to be able to do it. So the question is, what is the this? Pasuk in Dvarim Perek Lamed Pasuk Yedalid. And this pasuk essentially is the motto of the entire Sefer. If an author includes a pasuk in the title page of a book, what they're telling you is that this pasuk is the motto, the bumper sticker, the billboard of the entire Sefer. So in what way is this the bumper sticker or the billboard of the whole Sefer? Kikar ve'elacha hadavar. This. It's machlukas rishonim on that pasuk. The Ramban, Rashi, and others. Is it tshuva? Is it all of Torah? Is it a Torah life? Is it Emunah Bitachon? What is the this hadavar that is so close? It's so accessible. You think it's me'ever layam. You think it's b'shamayim. It's in the heavens. It's on the other side of the sea. You think you can't live it? You can live it. It's right in front of you. It's accessible. It's doable. You got this. It's in your mouth and it's in your heart. And what is the this? A life of Yiddishkeit. And this pasuk expresses the Tanya's fundamental optimism. It's turning to a world of people who say, I can't live this life. It's overwhelming. There's so much minutia and details, expectation. Rahman Ali Baboy, Hashem wants my heart. My heart is fragmented, distracted, divided. There's so much going on for many people. It's broken. I can't meet these expectations. I can't live this life. I can't follow Torah. So the Alter Rebbe quotes this pasuk as the motto of the Sefer to say no. It's the ultimate statement of optimism. You got this. I believe in you. It's doable. We can do this. It's achievable. And what an incredible statement to open a Sefer for the title page to tell us with tremendous optimism, positivity, motivation, hope that it's in our mouth, it's in our heart. We can generate this within ourselves. It is doable. It's not only for the lofty. Again, after all, this is an extension of it being the Sefer HaBeinonim. If it were a Sefer for tzaddikim, so I'm not a tzaddik. I look at it, I engage, I overlap, I see a tzaddik, I say, that could never be me. But a Benoni, a book that's going to tell the people who are engaged in a struggle, the daily grind, and even those who are struggling in the daily grind, but you got this, it's amazing. Lahavdil, today it's very popular. You see reels on social media or videos that make the rounds of motivational speakers, of these people, super athletes, and they're motivated. And why do people watch them? Nebuch, sadly, they abandon our own sacred Torah, our ancient Torah, our timeless Torah, to watch some motivational speaker, because what they're telling you is, you got this. I'm like you. I also struggled. I also was fat and sat on the couch and was lethargic and didn't do anything. And look at me. You got this. You could run a marathon. You could achieve. You could realize your dreams. You could kill it professionally. But you don't have to necessarily, there's nothing wrong with also watching those motivational speakers. But the Baal Tanya is the greatest motivational speaker. On the title page, what he's telling all of us is, it's a Sefer HaBeinonim. I'm one of you. We're all struggling. And yet, Karov Elecha Davar Ma'od, you've got this. You've got this. And the word of Hashem are very near. Ki Karov Elecha. It's very attainable. It's right in front of you. Levar Heitev Eichu Karov Ma'od B'derech Harucha Uktzar Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. And we'll end with this. He ends the title page essentially with this before he explains how the Sefer is broken up. He says, to explain clearly how it is exceedingly near in a long and a short way. What does it mean for something to be clear and near in a long and a short way? Which is it? Is it in a long way or is it in a short way? So the Gemara in Eruvin and Daf Nun Gimel Amud Beis tells the story. And the Baal Tanya here is referencing a Gemara. He's assuming you know it. Rabbi Yeshua said, I was once walking along the path and I saw a child who was sitting at a crossroads, at a juncture. And I asked him, which way should I go? Which way is going to take me to the city? And he said, one path is short but long, and one path is long but short. That's hardly good instructions. I mean, Waze does much better than that. So what does it mean? One way is long but short, the other way is short but long. Said Rabbi Yeshua, I took the short but long one. Who wouldn't want to take the short one? I took the short but long one. And once I arrived at the city, I found the passageway blocked off by meandering gardens and orchards. I turned back and said to the child, my son, didn't you describe this path as short? He replied, didn't I also say it was long? Sometimes, what do they say? Like by the eagles, by the birds. If you measure something, shortest distance, how the crow flies. Thank you so much. This is a group effort. I said we're learning it together. So how the crow flies, something is 1 mile. But if you use Waze, that gives you a satellite, you know that 1 mile has traffic and cops and accidents and backup, and it's closed down for road work. So even though it shows 1 mile, it's going to take you 3 hours. And the other path is 3 miles. But it's clear flying. There's no traffic. There's no buildup. There's no police. There's no shutdown. And you'll be able to get there in 10 minutes. So there's a long but short way and a short but long way. And why is the Baal Tanya invoking this Gemara on the title page? Because what he's telling us is the following. There are shortcuts to spirituality. There are shortcuts to spirituality. And they are the short way. But they're long. They're not lasting. They're fleeting. They're not authentic. They're not genuine. They're often fake and fraudulent. And then there's the long way, but the short way. The long way, that's the short way, is that there's no quick fix. There's no instant magic. There's no switch that you flip and you say, I want to be inspired. Sometimes people meet with me, Rabbi, inspire me. I want to be spiritual. Motivate me. And it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. There's no quick fix. That's why the Shabbos HaGadol drasha is in 15 minutes. It's not Cory Booker, but then again, I'm not going to fast. It's not that far off from it. I'm not going to fast or dehydrate myself the way he did. I mean, I'm not impressed. Cory Booker, eat 3 Shabbos meals, eat shalosh shudis, eat a kiddush and an off the record, and then give your drasha. Then you'll impress me. Till you do that, I'm not so impressed. But there's no quick fix. You don't flip a switch. It's not a 5-minute schmooze. There's no shortcut. There's no instant magic. This sefer is the long but short way. It's the long way, but it's short. It's short in the sense that it's the real way. It's the lasting way. The path that involves hard work and learning and training, and it's going to take chachma and bina and das, but it's going to get us there. And how does it get us there? We end with this: Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. Now, there are 2 ways you can understand Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. What do you mean there's 2 ways? Zwei dinim, zwei taichin in Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. One is that it is the derech arucha uktsara Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. One way of understanding it is, I'm going to explain all this to you Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. It's likutei amarim. I've collected and synthesized all the teachings of my rebbeim, and to make it all accessible and attainable, and I'm going to provide it and teach it and share it with you Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. That's why the simple way of understanding it. But the other way of understanding what the Alter Rebbe meant was b'derech arucha uktsara be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. Every path we take, every journey we go on, everything we try to achieve is only be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. So whether we choose the short but long or the long but short way will be be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. So every path we go on, every journey, whether we get to our destination, it is all be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. And with that, we conclude at the title page. We'll skip the Haskamas, even though they're worth studying, but we'll skip that. And the Mitzvah Hashem next week, we'll begin with the Hakdama, the Alter Rebbe's introduction, before we get into Perek Aleph ourselves. Have a wonderful day.